5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How about we do it again?
6, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think I farted.
Okay, let's try one more
I
time.
definitely.
Ready?
I can move you. Making review. Making review.
Say 6,
6,
5,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to episode 153 of Rank and Review. I am, as always, your host and random Canadian, Larry Parsons. Thank you so much for joining us. This episode, my guests Lee Beckmann and Jason Dubray and I are going to talk about our top 10 horror movies from the 2000s. We're also going to do a review of Constantine and Frailty. Thank you for bearing with us. I hope you've enjoyed this exploration of the horror cinema of the 2000s. I hope you've enjoyed your October of 2019 as this is airing. And thank you so much for listening to the show. You can send your feedback to ranknreview@gmail.com. That's ranknreview@gmail.com. You can check out the website at ranknreview.ca. Because I'm up here in Canada. And if you just tell that other movie freak in your life about Rank and Review, you'd be doing me a real favor. And now, on with episode 153, if you can believe that.
What if I told you that God and the devil made a wager for the souls of all mankind? No direct contact with humans, that would be the rule. Just influence. See who would win.
Demons stay in hell, angels in heaven.
They call it the balance.
I need to see what you see.
You do this, there's no turning back. You see them. They see you. Understand?
I command thee. Into the light I command thee.
So I get it. Constantine is a weird pick. It's a weird pick. It's like strange that I would do it. I see a lot of people, like I watch a lot of these like internet or YouTube channels about movies, and like as an example of a studio sellout piece of shit, hollow, awful movie, they will cite Constantine as like the ultimate piece of shit.
Okay.
And I see problems in the movie, and I'm not going to sit here saying Constantine's amazing.
Yeah.
Because clearly Constantine is not amazing.
Yeah.
But it is not terrible.
What a great cast.
In fact, I think it's got an awesome cast, and it's got some really cool ideas in it.
Yeah.
It's certainly got like origin movie-itis in that it's got as much world building in it as it has storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So that slows things down. Mm-hmm. And we've got this weird 50-50 thing going on with the cast in that we have some real bright spots, but we got some really low lows. I think that guy Bush, whatever his name is, Gavin,
Gavin. Let me look it up here.
It's one of his few movies.
Gavin Rossendale, I think is his name.
Something like that. I think he actively sucks in the movie. And I think and it pains me to say.
Balthazar, he's bad.
And it pains me to say it, but this can be counted of one of the barely there Keanu performances. He just isn't exciting or engaging in the movie. But Tilda Swinton as a renegade Gabriel, or what's his face from Fargo?
When he shows up, Peter Stormare
as the devil, fucking killing it.
Did you like him in that?
I thought he was funny. I liked him as the devil.
I didn't have a lot of patience for that.
Shia LaBeouf doing his Shia LaBeouf thing.
Yeah.
Pruitt Taylor, twitchy eyes from Identity, doing his twitchy eye thing. So he
was a bit much.
Rachel Weisz is good.
Rachel Weisz,
she anchors it a little bit more, I think.
Yeah.
So
Djimon Hounsou, I thought, was serviceable in what.
Serviceable. Not a great role for him, but
not a lot for him to do.
No,
but just generally speaking, there's these strange peaks and valleys throughout the movie. But there's something a little crazy and off kilter about it, and I got a soft spot for it. I mean, I can't be enthusiastic about it. It's not on my top 30 or any of our top 30 lists. Mm-hmm. But I mean, in a world where Roland Emmerich continues to make shit movie after shit movie, why is it that everyone's so furious about Constantine? I honestly thought it was like the blowback from the Matrix movies. Mm-hmm. The Matrix movies made money, but I have to think even the most hardcore people in denial at least would have to concede they were diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And Keanu was such hot shit because of the Matrix. It was almost too big to fail, so he had to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was also the thing that the John Constantine character, especially in its original incarnation, in the comic book, kind of looks like Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like that character was created to be played by Ewan McGregor with 3 days of facial hair on his face. It was one of those things, they cast Keanu Reeves because he was the it boy of the moment, not because he was the right guy to play Constantine.
Yeah.
But in spite of all of this, it's comfort food for me. It's one of those movies like the Friday the 13th, when I'm sick and I'm barely there for the movie, I can put it on and it will divert me from my discomfort.
Yeah.
It's not great, but it doesn't suck the way people seem to say it sucks.
Yeah.
And that's all I really wanted to say.
Yeah. This message was brought to you by James Lawrence Parsons.
It's not as sucky as people say. I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
So that was worth mentioning.
I saw this with a Constantine fan who had read the comic book series, so I walked out to a barrage of
anger.
And a lot of it was directed towards Keanu Reeves, but just the casting of him, because he is this sort of sarcastic British cockneyed a-hole.
Yeah.
Who is pansexual, who has no problem sleeping with boys, let alone women or demons.
But he's sort of the affable asshole. He does dickish things, but he's supposed to be charming in a Ferris Bueller kind of way.
Yeah.
None of it comes off charming in this movie. He just comes off like a cold dick.
Especially when he's talking to somebody whose sister has...
His indifference is terrible.
Yeah.
So I can understand why at least a lot of the fans of the comics would be upset with the movie. I think it's engaging and strong enough. It plays like a very, very good supernatural episode in a lot of ways. And I think that's why time has been even more harsher to it, that we've seen this particular story, the battle of heaven and hell, appearing on Earth so many times right now. It's sort of, the CW is famous for TV series based on this sort of world. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, this is not from Justin to Kelly or even the Twilight movies. It's not that bad.
Interesting ideas.
It just diverted, I think, from the original source material so much that it just brought a lot of ire from at least the geekdom community.
Which is important demographic for this movie to be successful. The geek.
It was a little early before. It was a little before its time in the way that the sort of geek culture was fully embraced by Hollywood, right?
Yeah, I guess.
2002 was not the Marvel Universe wasn't a real deal yet. So
I have to say it does just start out pretty strong with the whole exorcism. I thought that's a great.
That was
way.
an interesting.
Trapping the demon within the mirror,
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
It falling out of the window, but that demon arm just hanging out of it, kind of a cool image.
Yeah.
I liked the whole passage into hell thing where he has to put his feet in a bucket of water and
Yeah.
stare a cat in the eyes.
Yeah.
There's something very specific and very strange and kind of interesting about that.
Yeah.
The scene where he holds her underwater is kind
We've
of
seen that
interesting.
before,
Yeah, we have, but
it's well done.
It's
the
also
vision of hell, like the way those demons have no eyes or like all they have on them is mouths, basically.
Yeah.
The rest
And
of
you
them
can
is
see, like,
But did you
part of
like
her brain.
the whole hell look? It felt so.
It's a very CGI environment.
Very CGI.
But
Yeah.
I've watched Spawn. So after you see the hell environment of Spawn, like, no, this is fine.
See,
I thought that part was.
I had
actually
recently watched
exceptionally
Deconstructing
strong.
Harry,
Mm-hmm.
and Woody Allen pieced together Hell in that, and I much preferred his version of Hell which is indeed Hell, to this CGI thing.
Give it this. We haven't seen that version of hell before. I didn't think so.
I thought it was
I hadn't seen those
a
demons.
21st century Hollywoodized version.
It looks
of
like
hell.
a post-nuclear blasted wasteland more
Yeah.
than it looks like hell.
Mm-hmm.
But then these weird demon things show up. But again, these are these isolated moments. I was amused by the James Bond gadgetry while acknowledging how overtly silly it was.
Yeah.
And like I would have been really impressed by the sprinkler system holy water thing, but I kind of felt like that was covered in other movies before.
Yeah.
I liked it though.
Well,
I mean,
Blade
yeah,
has something similar. In all
Yeah,
ways.
Blade does.
They're,
That's right.
they're spraying blood, and
Yeah,
in
but-
this they're spraying holy water. but-
Yeah.
Yes.
But I,
What is the name of the
nothing
female
wrong.
actor from Kiss Kiss? Monahan. What's her name?
Michelle Monaghan.
Yeah, she's got actually a small cameo in there, a theatrical cut. She has actually a larger role. There's some extra deleted scenes where her role is expanded.
Right.
So it's a little shout out to her. This is one of her earlier movies.
I like.
When is she in it?
She
Just trying to
shows
remember-
up. There's a shot of her at the end when they're with the battle with Gabriel, and then where Satan shows up. She's in that building initially when
Okay.
Keanu walks in and starts lighting literally a fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
I loved seeing Tilda Swinton get punched in the face as an angel, a being that's never experienced pain before. So it's a really big over-the-top reaction on her, but it would be an interesting thing to approach.
Yeah.
You've literally never felt pain before, and that actually really fucking hurts. And
Yeah, like
you gotta try to retain your composure. But I picture her sitting in that pool and crying for a couple of hours before she gets brave enough to like. I thought that was really well played,
Yeah.
But then there are other things like, did all of Constantine's sidekicks need to be killed off one at a time? Like, did all of them literally, like, we're going to introduce this guy, then he's going to give his piece of information, and then we're going to kill him.
Yeah.
And then we're going to introduce this guy.
Yeah.
And he's going to give his piece of information, and they're going to kill him.
Yeah.
And Shia LaBeouf is finally going to earn his place on his side. And then we're going to kill him. Like, it was just like...
Even though I kind of wanted him to be gone earlier.
I don't miss the character necessarily, but it just seemed lazy that, like... The entire supporting cast was introduced to be killed off. It's just kind of irritating to me.
But that's very much like the comic, though. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the characters that helped John Constantine end up.
But
dead,
if you're
so-
gonna build a world, leave somebody left. If you were gonna make a sequel, which they didn't, and I understand, and that's okay. But if you were gonna make a sequel, basically all you had was John Constantine.
Yeah.
Or I guess the devil. So you weren't so big on the devil, hey?
No.
I thought he was delicious. I love the.
I
He's
love
over the top.
that actor. I mean,
He is over the
talked
top.
about a lot.
I will give you that. But there was something about
I
it.
think it lost patience with the movie at that point. I mean, it's
I love that he does the whole childish, clappy dance.
It's
He
a
first
thumbs
comes
down
in.
review, but it's not like thumbs way down. And I mean, like the venom that you had for the Matrix, I thought,
Right.
oh, well, we could be.
We're in trouble here.
Are we going to
I
be
will say
punching
that-
Keanu all over? This is maybe a lazy performance from him, but not as bad as
I get the
some
feeling
stuff he's
like
done.
he just misread the character. He thought the character was kind of like dark and cool.
Yeah.
Dour.
But no, it's not like that at all. He just doesn't give a fuck anymore. He's dying, and he deals with like crazy intangibles on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And if he steps on your toes, if he's a little bit of a drunken asshole, well, I got bigger fish to fry than being likable.
And I like he's chain smoking through the whole thing.
Again,
And
very
he's-
true to the
you know,
comic.
it's there are small moments here and there to like, some things to really like. Rachel Weisz was my favorite part of the movie.
She's always good, though.
Yeah.
I find.
She is, yeah. She's like when we're talking about Kate Blanchett or one of these people that can.
She might not always be in great movies, but she's not going to go half-assed.
Yeah.
And she, in a way, plays two roles in this,
Yeah.
and you know, she gave me more hope for this movie. Swinton was fine. I mean, we just don't see her for great chunks of the film. She shows up, and I really wanted to like Peter Stormare in this more than I did. I
don't know, it worked for
I've
me.
seen so many different versions of
I
the
thought
devil.
he was
and-
delicious in his brief scenes.
It's one of these things where he's not a tormented devil. Like,
Yeah.
this dude really likes being
The
devil.
devil,
Like,
yeah.
And I kind of appreciate that take
And
on
that's...
it. He's not insecure.
I don't know why I'm
about it.
making a
He's
comparison
fine with
to
Yeah.
deconstructing Harry, but Billy Crystal's
He's no
kind
Billy
of the
Crystal?
Billy Crystal enjoys being the devil too in that, and
Yeah.
so I can appreciate that.
I think at this point the devil would have to accept his fate and sort of enjoy it so
Yeah.
much because, you know, he's...
And again, like, and this is true to the books. Every time he does a possession, he would basically, because hell will listen when the demon's being sent back, he would basically piss in Satan's face, and he would do it knowingly as a damned soul because he'd taken his own life. So, as far as he knows, his ticket is already bought and paid for. But in spite of this, he would shit talk the devil himself on a regular basis because that's the kind of shit he would do, right?
Yeah.
And again, I think Keanu Reeves thought he was doing it because he was cool. But
Yeah.
no, it's not that. It's a different thing entirely.
I think what's frustrating is there's a very, very good movie in here,
Oh, yeah.
and it just wasn't realized.
Well, and this guy went on to do the Hunger Games movie.
Yeah,
And he did
I
Am
recognized the
Legend.
director, and I was just looking through.
Which, once again, is sort of schizophrenic in its quality.
Well, that's sort of been, unfortunately, the story of his life. It's just almost, but not quite. But I do
Red
believe...
Sparrow, he also, that was...
Yeah, I haven't seen Red Sparrow.
Yeah.
But, like, I do believe that he's got a great movie in him. But
Yeah.
most of the time, it's been
It
almost,
hasn't
but
happened
not
yet.
quite. Like, I almost think I Am Legend was really cool, but
Yeah.
not quite.
Yeah,
I
I
watched it
know.
considering it for this list, but
I
then it
know.
was...
Will Smith is so good in that movie,
There's
too.
good
Yeah.
stuff in it, but
Yeah.
overall, it
It
just
kind
don't add
of,
up.
towards the end, falls apart a bit.
I'm cheering for this guy. Again, it's there's something here. I
Yeah.
get that it's not fully realized,
Yeah.
but like in all of the decade reviews too, I mean, we did The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which is a very 70s movie, but not a very good movie. In the 80s, when we talked about The Lost Boys, it wasn't a great movie, but it was a very 80s movie. I do think that Constantine was a very 2002 movie.
It makes perfect sense.
This is
Yeah.
where we
Yeah.
were at in that
Yeah.
decade, and
Yeah.
it's not a good example necessarily of the horror. It's not anywhere near the best of the horror movie, but everybody can relax a little bit about Constantine. It doesn't. It's diverting and fun and forgettable. It's not the worst thing that ever happened. Okay,
Yeah.
that's Boondock
No.
Saints.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about
No,
that?
no, that's pretty much
I'm
it.
glad you brought it into this so that we could just talk about something that's
Constantine.
totally different. It
Yeah.
didn't make anybody's list, but it's...
If
All
you
right.
want to like Constantine, I think you'll get something out of it.
I-
but if you want to pull
I
a
think-
thread, you'll win. If you
I think
fight this movie, you'll win.
I think I started with a negative attitude about it, and then I got into it. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. These actors are in this. There must be stuff to like." And so I found myself liking it more than I thought I was going to, and I cheering for it in some ways. Or it's like when they would take a misstep, it's like, "Shoot, you just don't do
Well,
that." Like it's
and
so
we're living-
close to being. Even just like a thumbs up type of review would be.
We're living in the
amazing
age
for
of
it.
John Wick now.
Yeah.
Keanu's big again, so maybe people will give it another day in court.
Yeah, I will say this. As a casual moviegoer or as a enthusiastic moviegoer, I think as a film, Constantine is definitely entertaining enough. I understand why the fans of the comics hate this movie. I get it. I gets it and the liberties it takes, but it's by sure not a movie that deserves, I think, a lot of the hate that I see. And so I agree with you on that end.
I mean, it's not the film version of The Dark Tower.
No.
Which
No,
is like,
no.
why don't you just
This is
like...
not X versus Sever.
No.
This is not Baby Geniuses. This is not even Aragon. That
the Forgettable Dragon movie.
no,
it's Constantine.
It's Constantine.
It's
Constantine.
So we're getting into top 10 time, you guys.
Nice.
It's getting real. It's been an interesting chat. Long chat already.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. Don't get me wrong. I'm not asking us. I'm not asking us to rush to the finish line. But
Okay.
I'm interested because I feel like Lee and I will have a lot of crossover, but mathematically, there's no way we're gonna have like 10 for 10.
No.
The same.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that. And I'm also interested because I have no idea what Jason's list is.
I'm the wild card.
Yeah.
I've heard 20 of your picks, and again, this is not a criticism at all,
Yeah.
but from what I've heard, I have no idea where we're going to
There's
fly.
there's gonna be some entries that I'm like,
What are you talking
no.
And there might be some where you go, like you said with a couple of them, I'm not sure that's a horror movie.
Right.
And so that...
Well, again, but respect, like the Zodiac pick, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no.
fucking love that.
No,
movie.
don't understand. Zodiac?
Love it.
Yes. You should see the action that Lee is
No.
right now.
I have it in honorable mentions, and I had the conversations with Parsons. I did ask him if he put Zodiac on.
Okay.
Because one of those, it's so good.
It's great, yeah.
I almost want to go watch it.
right now.
right now, you know.
No, like I would not be upset if we did, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I got 3 hours to go. We've been talking movies for several hours, and
And
still
we aren't
have a
actually
few to
watching
go.
any, which is...
But yeah. Anyway, let's do this. Mr. Beckmann,
Yes.
top 10 time. The 10th best horror film from the noughties.
Well, I freely admit that my love of werewolves comes into play here. And once again, a little sort of, patriotic, pride, because it's a Canadian... But
It's a Canadian idea.
It's a Canadian idea,
Yes.
but it's also a resounding and amazingly well-made, put together with great puppetry and other sort of practical effects, and that is Ginger Snaps.
Yeah.
Of course.
Ginger Snaps is just a great horror film, whether it came from Canada or not. I love the angles that it has with, a sort of associating werewolf with, budding sexual, young girl, puberty, not really sexuality, but puberty. It's a funny movie too. And how about that Mimi Rogers? When's the last time that you just kind of
meant to mention her when we...
Mimi Rogers, good for you. She seems to actually give some great Canadian performances. I remember a movie years ago, this weird sort of religious cult movie she did in Canada, like
Rapture?
The Reaping or something. I can't remember.
At the risk of sounding like a heterosexual male,
Yeah.
Catherine Isabelle is ridiculously fucking hot in that movie too. She just
I
is.
say this.
It's just a fact.
Yeah,
I know
no,
she's playing
yeah.
like a teenage
No,
girl
no,
or whatever,
she's-
but
yeah.
But
she's-
how old was she when she did it? Like,
We all
Yeah.
came across as pigs now, so you
Yeah,
have to
but-
understand that.
Here's the thing I do have to say, that they seemed like, I love the sisters, I love all... They did seem, it's the usual thing where they seemed older than they actually
Yeah, I think
were.
they were in
I
their
didn't believe
20s.
she was
I
having her
love-
period for the first
I love-
time.
Yeah.
I love both
But
the sisters.
they're such good actors.
But
that
great
how-
characters, and anyways, we can go on and on and on about how
And
awesome
we will.
Ginger Snaps is.
And
I can't believe you put it that low.
I know.
That's just me.
But there was actually one version of the list where it wasn't on, which
Oh, wow.
you two would have been
That
like,
would've
taking
cost you.
turns slapping me on
That
that
would
one.
have cost her.
Because but it's so...
What's
To
your
me, it's
10?
personal. Yeah, my number 10 is Hard Candy.
Okay.
Okay,
very, very uncomfortable movie to watch. Ellen Page
I understand it.
is so like you side with her but at the same time you're like,
They're both
okay, does the
monsters.
punishment equal the
They're
crime?
both monsters. We're seeing.
They're both horrible people.
Well, what we're
and
seeing is like
I
the
that.
budding start of a female serial killer. Is what
Yes,
we're
As far
saying.
as
I
I'm
mean,
concerned-
she's so methodical. Everything that she has done, and the psychological terror. And there is, I'm not sure how many people have seen this, but there, for a male, there is a sequence which is so uncomfortable to sit through.
It does make you somewhat feel vulnerable.
It made me
Same
feel so
director.
uncomfortable.
Sorry, same director did 30 Days of Night.
David Slade.
That I talked about at the top of the list. And my thing about that, I like the movie. I respect the choice. It's not on the list. A little bit more psychological to me, but I get it. I get it.
Which is what I talked about,
props,
the psychological
props.
But to me, this is like, two monsters meet each other and one monster eats the other one.
Yeah.
That's basically what we're seeing.
such a cold one.
I don't like or respect the idea that this is like a rah hero thing for the Ellen Page character. There are people who have that interpretation of it, and I don't like that. But if you look at it as I think the movie is intended, as two monsters meet each other and one eats the other, you can get off on that. But
But is she still not a vulnerable person? Like, given her age?
No.
I mean, like, because she has
she
this
loves
ability,
what she's doing.
as horrible
she
as it is.
loves what she's doing.
Yeah.
She loves it.
But it's very targeted. I mean, it's not like
It's like the Dexter thing.
Yeah.
It's okay because she's targeting a bad person. I don't know that that's true.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's true. It's not true for Dexter, and I don't think it's true here. But I do think it's an interesting, thought-provoking movie.
And I appreciate Wilson,
Patrick
Patrick Wilson. He will take on some ugly characters.
No problem. And he's awful. I'm not defending his character, by the way. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I like part of the movie is enjoying watching this dude squirm, and should you enjoy it, right?
But it's like a LaBute film in
one of the
some
questions.
ways where you're like, should I be cheering for this? No, I shouldn't be cheering for this. But he's horrible. And then at the end, they're both horrible people.
Well, I'll be talking about LaBute actually later on at some point.
Oh,
so.
okay.
Not about one of the movies. Not about one of the movies. When we're doing one of the reviews. Anyway.
Okay.
So we'll continue. So I'm right with Lee. For the first time, we've actually aligned completely.
Oh.
Ginger Snaps is my number 10 as well. I understand people might say, "Oh, this is biased. They're Canadians." There's some wonky performances, and there is some weak special effects. But I really legit think the angle they took on the werewolf is brilliant.
Yep.
And it's aged really well.
Yeah.
I think that it's a great movie for teenagers, but it's still a great movie for adults as well.
Yeah.
It's got that Canadian weirdness that I always like to talk about, definitely all over it. So once again, Ginger Snaps.
Yep.
We've all represented for Ginger Snaps. Good for us.
It's a 3. Yeah.
Number 9, Mr. Beckmann. I assume nobody else has anything more to say about Ginger Snaps.
no.
So number 9, this is where I turn to you and kind of give me a what? Because at number 9, I have Alexandre Aja's The Hills Have Eyes remake.
It's a
and
hard movie, man.
And for someone who has championed so hard for that film, but me agreeing with you, I'm just surprised you haven't, not even on the top 10, but not even on your list.
Right.
This movie takes, it actually does better on some things that the original tries.
I'm a fan. Don't get me wrong.
Like even the new angles they took, it's impressive. It's beautifully shot. I like me some Ted Levine. The Winnebago sequence is deal.
In both of those movies, the assault on the camper sequence is just unbelievable. It's an incredibly horrifying sequence, and I have a lot of respect for Aja, and I like the original and I like the remake, but I don't know, for some reason, one of my stupid arbitrary rules, I was going to put a remake in that slot, and I had to choose between Dawn of the Dead and Hills of Eyes.
You want to have a variety. You don't want to have two remakes.
I do like the movie a lot. I do also think that it has a much narrower audience than the Dawn of the Dead remake.
See,
there's people who will really like this movie, and then there's the rest of the world who will be appalled by it. You know?
Yeah.
I have watched both. For whatever reason, the original sticks with me because it's just so nuts. It is so horrible and out there that I just did. This felt too safe, and it's not safe. It really is not safe at all. But it didn't have the impact I was waiting for to feel what I did with the original, and it never happened. And I like the cast a lot. There was one woman I was excited to see in the movie, Vanessa Shaw. She was in Eyes Wide Shut, which is a one of my favorite movies of all time. But that's kind of as far as it got. I mean, I just thought it was. It wasn't as out there, but it's probably a good thing that it's not as out there.
There's one absurd moment where one of the kill folks like pulls the head off of a bird and squishes the guts into its mouth. Like, that was completely gratuitous and needless, and it was just one of the things that made me shake my head and said, you guys went for it. But there's also a scene, I think you guys will know what to talk about if I say it, but one of the characters has a last gasp.
Yeah.
And it is one of the more purely horrifying, isolated moments of the decade. Like, that moment by itself, like, it was already terrible, and then she was still alive for a few seconds.
Yeah.
And it just hung in the air. Like it got my blood up. It was one of those movies where I was mad on behalf of the family, and I really wanted, in both versions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh no, they're great villains.
It's a weird one because for me, the remake made me reassess and reappreciate the original.
The first one,
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Because I'd seen it when I was really young and didn't have as close as an attachment to it. So I like it a lot now.
Yeah.
It ranked quite high in the 70s.
So just color me surprised I didn't make it, but
There it was. Number 9.
Number 9 for me is The Gift, directed by Sam Raimi.
Excellent.
Rewatched it again. I saw it in
Once
theaters
again,
back in the day, and it was even more effective
I
on a
feel shame that
rewatch.
it's not on the list.
Oops.
Yeah.
This is the one I missed, folks.
This is one of. It seems like we're regularly talking about great ensemble casts, but
Yeah.
they pieced us together, and this was Billy Bob post Sling Blade, and he was just randomly directing All the Pretty Horses and co-writing this and he didn't act in the movie, but the perspective he brought to it, I feel, is in there. I felt like he knew this town and all of its quirks, and I like that there's a supposed plot twist, which I think was somewhat predictable, but then there's another one which is not predictable. All of what you said before was like every note I had about this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, good for Keanu Reeves. When he plays a villain, though, this racist, redneck jerk, he is so good. That's where I almost thought he could act.
Yeah.
You know? And he's having a resurgence right now because of John Wick and several other things.
Well, how
but
about Hilary
Ribisi was
Swank?
so good, too. And I don't always like Giovanni Ribisi.
No, you got to be careful how you use him, but he's perfect in that role. Hilary Swank, too, fairly hot off her Oscar, playing a very low status character
Compared to the other characters that she's played. I mean,
but like some actresses wouldn't want to play just a beaten wife character is not good. But not only that, she loves her husband and doesn't follow the good advice. She's like a much more realistic portrayal, and a lot of actresses would say, no, I have to be. Can we change it so that she's stronger and it would feel less truthful, right?
Yeah.
And good for her for taking it on. And again, a small supporting role from this fantastic actor.
No, it's a amazing.
Gary
movie.
Cole's in there. I mean,
Everyone's good. Everyone's good from Greg Kinnear right down.
It's a great story too. I mean, if you just want it, because you're all about story.
Yeah.
If you want to just experience a great story and you think you know what's going to happen, and it goes in a different direction. Very impressive, and it was before Tom Cruise married Katie Holmes, so she was allowed to do
Katie Holmes
certain
briefly
scenes.
naked in it. Mental note.
I feel so bad that I actually missed Kate Blanchett's performance in The Gift when I was talking about amazing female performances in horror movies, because it's like she's given a gift of a character.
She's always good though.
And she nails
Even
it.
if the movie isn't good, Kate Blanchett is
I just saw that Bernadette movie, and if she is not in that movie, it is a bomb.
Right.
But it's in above average comedy.
Yeah.
Because she is so
Kate
good.
Blanchett, we love you.
So we're going to go back to familiar territory for my number 9. We have talked about this movie, but I do think it's important and significant. Paranormal Activity.
Alright.
It's a middle of the afternoon scary movie. And it's one of these things, like I've had it happen to me a couple times in my life, and I don't know if it's like I don't know. I understand why I have a fear of sharks, even though it's unrealistic, right? And I understand why I have a fear of bad situations blooming out of when I'm like feeling vulnerable and away from home. But every now and then, I'll be at my house or I'll be staying at someone else's house, and I'll be by myself, and for no reason, I get creeped out.
Mm-hmm.
In my own house.
Yeah.
I remember one particular case at my mom's place. It was Christmas time and everybody else went out shopping and I wanted to stay and watch The Raid Redemption. Because I didn't want to fight the throngs in the mall. No. I wanted to watch some kick-ass action.
Yeah.
So that was what I was doing. And I just realized, I turned off the movie and I was just trying to decide what I wanted to do, but I was terrified. Like, I was not a little bit unnerved. I was creeped the fuck out for no reason. And whatever that feeling is what Oren Peli tapped in to for this Paranormal Activity movie. And yeah, sure, watch it with the lights out and if you want to, get that atmospheric thing. But there's something that is so vulnerable about this movie. It is very, very, very frightening. So that sense of paranoia, that there's something around that you can't see, or this, that you're in a safe place, your haven, and that for whatever reason you don't feel safe there. Why is that?
Mm-hmm.
Why? I don't believe in devil stuff, and I've said in the past, usually like demonic stuff doesn't tend to work on me as far as being scary, but I gotta say, this movie creeped me the fuck out. And I've had a weird relationship with the movie. It's sort of like the horror Indiana Jones franchise, where I feel like the odd number entries in the franchise are quite good, but the even entries are not very good at all. So that's how I feel about the Paranormal franchise. But it stayed with me and continues to, and I believe the press on it. But as I said, I'm a big defender of found footage, as I've always been. It was the Blair Witch of this decade for me.
I mean, if it's about scaring me, that probably should be the number one. For whatever reason, I did not sleep after watching this, and I can't explain it. And I thought, okay, well, that was just the first time, but watching it again for this, there's still gave me goosebumps in places, and I just can't explain it.
I'm on
Team Demon.
On Team Demon.
Yeah.
But halfway through, I just switched to Team Demon, and I like. It's not that I didn't jump at certain spots. Even the end, I kind of like went, "Rrr," but I got to a point where I was cheering for the boyfriend's death.
Yeah, you're not alone. It's sort of like the Blair Witch thing. A lot of people hate that central female performance in that movie.
Yeah.
I disagree with it the way I disagree with the Mika thing here, but I also understand it. So.
Yeah.
Paranormal Activity, number 9.
Okay. Okay. So at number 8, and I'm so glad he went back to this well, and I can understand you calling it, that sort of the long lost Evil Dead movie, but Sam Raimi's sort of lovely gypsy folk tale, Faustian kind of tale of Drag Me to Hell is just an hour 45 great goodness. I think it is generally more terrifying than Evil Dead 2. Don't get me wrong, I think Evil Dead 2 is classic horror comedy. There's a lot of fun stuff, and not that there isn't humor in this one too. But I don't know, like the Lamia creature is just an evil villain who, even we see at the start, has no problem taking children.
Yeah.
And just the use of shadow and the use of sound. That's one thing that I think Raimi does so well.
Sound, yeah.
Is like, he knows a horror movie sometimes can be successful if you're putting this over your ears. It is a well-made, loud movie. Yeah. Along with the sort of gallows humor with the monsters. To this day, cannot understand how that's PG-13, but I don't want to talk about it more because we will.
Should we just table that for the review?
Table it. I'm prepared to be sold.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
All right.
Drag Me to Hell. Okay,
number 8.
Yep.
This is where I put Pontypool, and it was very. At one point, it was second. I mean, it's gone up and down here. What a original, clever idea! And I know there's source material which I have not read, but for a horror movie, and it's a heady idea, and on the surface it seems like a really simple concept, and most of it happens in this radio station town hall thing. Again, as being Canadian, we can sort of identify with this setting and him driving early in the morning on this horrible day. But it starts really creepy from the beginning. There's a jump scare where there's that woman who's trying to communicate with him and cannot, and it's like, well, what's going on? And great performance. I still I've watched it a lot, and I want to watch it more because I still don't feel like I completely have my head around all aspects. But it doesn't matter because it is scary and it is interesting and it's just a solid film. And you said it hasn't caught on as much.
Did you stay past the end credits?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one last stinger has always been a mystery to me.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have any answers.
Yeah, and that's what I was hoping to get from.
Look, if you're stumbling upon Pontypool, I don't know, in your Netflix queue, or like people don't go to video stores anymore.
No.
But I can understand someone saying, "Oh, another zombie movie," and moving on. Don't.
No.
Don't.
Check this one out. It is so good.
Yeah. So,
It is so
I
good.
think we're all agreed.
Yeah.
On in eighth position.
No, I've done 8th.
No, well,
You
I
haven't.
haven't. I haven't
Sorry.
done 8.
Yeah.
I'm being
I'm gonna do
huge.
my rank as well. Okay.
Shame
Ah.
on me.
Horror anthologies have been a soft spot of mine forever, and
Yeah.
Michael Dougherty did this Halloween orgy called Trick or Treat.
Yo.
Oh, I wanted to see it before this.
Oh,
Is it as good as?
I am a big fan of this. It's
Good.
It is like a Halloween tradition for me.
Yeah, to play it on Halloween is a really good choice too.
He's like. He'd been Bryan Singer, actually, I believe. Was it Bryan Singer?
He was going to produce it, yeah.
He did produce it, and this is right around the time he stopped doing the X-Men and started doing Superman, and there was some hurt feelings in the studios, so they basically buried this movie.
Yeah.
And in spite of that, it's got this huge earned cult reputation.
Like, you
around
really
it.
can't believe.
Is there a
that
good
it got-
cast in there too? I
Brian
think?
Cox.
Yeah.
Anybody a fan of Brian Cox?
Yeah.
Raise your hands, yes.
Mention him once.
I can't remember the name of the other guy. Anna Paquin's in it.
Yep.
There's some names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And each one of the stories has a little twist.
Yeah.
And horror savvy people will probably see some of them coming.
Oh, yes.
But it's packed full. And it's one of those weird things, like the weakest part of the movie for me is the opening kill. For some reason.
Yeah.
But the genius of the movie is that it works all the way back to the opening kill again.
Yeah.
And when you come to the opening kill again at the end of the movie,
Yeah.
you really like it.
Yeah.
So like it's just like this jewel. I love every one of the stories. It's hard to pick a favorite. I guess I could if I had to, but
Yeah.
like it's
They're-
just
they're-
it's wall to wall
There's
joy.
not, there's not one bad story in that movie. That's the thing.
That's
good. Prepare to be shocked and surprised because at number 7, I have Trick or Treat
There
as
you go.
well. I couldn't believe that this film never made it to theaters.
Yeah.
Like I understand some films being like dropped by the studio, but this probably would have made a good mint. Like it would have been
If properly supported.
It would have made its money
at
back
what it's released.
for sure. It's I don't know, man. What more can I say? It's I'm nodding my head in agreement.
Yeah.
Trick or Treat. I think for my money, the most terrifying story is the one with the bus and the kids.
Yeah.
That one when they start coming back, and you knew it was coming, but still you were just terrified to see them actually come back.
And it's fun and scary.
Yeah.
But like it's a good, relatively safe horror movie. Like you're not going to walk away feeling bad. In fact,
Yeah.
it'll probably energize you. Like
Yeah, it's not one of these depressing.
No,
ones
No,
And
we're
it's
talking about.
mercifully short too.
very short for the amount of stories that they're telling.
Yeah.
Like surprisingly efficient. So yeah.
I don't know, like, yeah.
Trick or treat, peoples.
Trick or Treat, yeah.
Jason Dubray.
Number 7 is one I know it's on at least one, maybe it's all 3 of our lists here. Session 9, directed by Brad Anderson. What a perfect setting for a movie. Like you've talked about, when your next movie that you make is going to be taking a setting and just using it, and this former mental institution with these horrible techniques that they used, and it's a great place. And we never feel that comfortable in the movie, which is, and I feel like I can predict a lot of things, and when they kind of trick you with, oh, this one character's behind all of this, and well, that makes perfect sense given the actor that they've cast.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, you have totally messed with my mind here, and I should have seen it coming. It is such a good movie. It is short. It's to the point, but there's so much happening.
Deeply psychological.
It's the best thing David Caruso has done since he left NYPD Blue. You know.
I think I also like just the ordinariness of the situation. This is a crew of people removing asbestos from an old building. Yeah. That's their job. They're working good. Like, it's a dangerous job, but they basically do the same thing repeated over and over again, and they just go to the wrong building. And they have their own flaws when they start there, but everything bad about their psychology is exacerbated by the building.
Like, the one guy has stolen the other guy's wife, and so there's this tension between these guys, and spoilers, when the one guy goes missing, it's like, oh, who are you to blame? Oh yeah, I guess the guy who
It's got to be Josh Lucas. Love it. We're going to be talking about it again.
I totally agree. I'm not disagreeing on anything you're saying. We will be visiting this film again.
Yeah. All right, 7th place, Wreck.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like an amazing found footage movie, and it's an amazing zombie movie. And those two genres get beat up on all of the time, and I get sick of it. And here sits a movie that's exceeding at doing both of them. Until the recent Train to Busan, like, it was one of the, it's right up there with my favorite zombie movies. Like 28 Days Later, obviously, I have a lot of respect for that Dawn remake. And then there's been an ocean of zombie movies out there, right? So you need your Pontypools to stand up and wave and make themselves known. And Wreck fucking makes itself known.
I'm nodding my head in approval. Yep.
So, yeah, watch Wreck.
Yes, I will. He
says number 6, brother.
All right. So once again, we had a resurgence of Asian horror, and oddly enough, I think one of the best is the American remake of The Ring. It's a great mystery ghost story with a lot of creepy images and sort of great satire on the whole, the videotape that kills kind of a thing. I'd seen this before I saw the original Japanese version. I knew nothing was coming. I even was surprised. So I didn't know the story at all.
Yeah.
And I thought we had our ending right when
she releases the spirit from the well.
Yeah.
And all is good.
Yeah.
And now credits should roll.
Yeah. And then they say, "You mean you didn't? You let her out?
Why did you let her out?"
Yeah. And she's this really awful villain, and then comes to the TV, and
it's one of those reveals that if it works, it kind of works because in your heart, the movie should be over.
Yeah.
And the fact that the movie isn't over tells you, oh shit, something's gonna go down.
Yeah.
I think actually Drag Me to Hell tries a very similar thing in its third act.
Yeah.
No, I like The Ring. I just think it's already showed its age.
Okay.
Like the VHS medium is like that in itself, and it seemed pretty rapidly to show its age. And it was early in this thing where they were treating the film digitally to sort of drain the saturation and colors out of it. And there was a while there where it was being overused, and I think it's one of those movies that sort of tells of its time because of that tactic. But mainly it's one of the rare remakes that I think, for me, kind of improved on the original. So, points.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm not quite there with it, but
okay.
Maybe I'll revisit it. I promise you I'll watch it again, and because I think it had a lot of influence in the early part of the decade. But
hey, he ranked it lower than I ranked it, so
yeah. Right, number 6, continuing with Asian horror, even though The Ring wasn't, but it was a remake. A Tale of Two Sisters that's where it is. I wanted to watch it again, just so it was a little bit more fresh in my mind. Right. You're reminding me with some of the examples you're coming up with, but the thing that struck me about it is just being blown away the first time watching. You can never go back to the first time you watch a movie, and visually it is so amazing. If you love horror movies, you have to see this movie. I don't know how you're getting a copy of it. Maybe Larry has one, and he'll send it to you. Yeah, but I've had trouble. I was looking at streaming services to see it again, and I just could not have it not in my top 10 because I couldn't get a copy of it. So
patient, so composed, and so
slow burn,
genuinely chilling. Genuinely chilling.
And at the end,
I get
you're
it.
Devastated.
I get it, folks.
Do you want to say anything more about Tale of Two Sisters?
No. Like I said, it's one of those movies that when I had to make this decision, it was like Tale of Two Sisters is not going on. I understand.
in sixth place, I have my third and final tie. And in true to Larry form, it's related to a director. Anyone want to guess?
George A. Romero.
Danny Boyle.
Guillermo del Toro. They would have had to have made movies that decade. So, The Devil's Backbone
Yep.
and Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
By Guillermo del Toro. He calls them brother and sister movies. Thematically, they both deal with a child. I think it's both the Spanish Civil War, isn't it?
Yep.
Or is it
Yeah.
Revolution?
Yeah.
Anyway, they're both children growing up around terrible points in history who encounter supernatural entities. There's a lot of things similar to them. Unpopularly, I personally prefer The Devil's Backbone to Pan's Labyrinth.
Really?
I do. Pan's Labyrinth, I think my friend Ashley Peczkowski fairly accurately called it the Schindler's List of fantasy movies. Like, it is fucking brutal and devastating.
Oh, it
and
is.
heavy.
It is.
Like, it's a heavy movie. And, like, Devil's Backbone has got its dark corners, too. But there's a wink of hope to that movie.
Yeah.
And Pan's Labyrinth, depending on how you choose to interpret
that is.
you can say that it's a wonderful, lovely fantasy, but like you're subjected to a lot of darkness in that movie.
That's why Pan's
Which
Labyrinth.
I don't think I expected going in.
No.
I probably should have, but I didn't.
See, that's
the
why
first
I
time I
would put
saw
Pan's
it.
Labyrinth is like dark fantasy,
Right.
but
the movies, because they are so close, and because I love Guillermo, I'm going to let him share the spot.
Yeah.
I think The Devil's Backbone is one of it does hit all the check boxes of like your industry standard ghost movie, but it's executed beautifully.
Yeah.
And
He's a
Pan's
master.
Labyrinth is the Guillermo del Toro movie in the way that he approaches brutal violence on one hand, and how the monsters in his universes are always both beautiful and scary.
yeah,
Like the design of them themselves are just fascinating.
yeah,
I don't know how else to say it because it sounds hacky, but they just feel more real than other monsters to me. Even his goofier stuff like Hellboy and Mimics, somehow those monsters feel more thought out, more real to me than a lot of other movies. I love me some Guillermo, so there it
So
is.
I guess confession is I need to give Devil's Backbone another day in court. I think it was one of those movies where I was not in the right mood for it.
Right.
I mean, at the same time, I understand how good it is. It just didn't make my list, but I understand.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a tough one to get to.
Probably
Get a copy
nowadays.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it was early 2000.
They reissued it after he did Blade.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there was this big banner across the top from the director of Blade 2. And I'm like, this is a fantastic movie, and I hope that maybe more people watch that because of it. But putting Blade 2 on there is such a fucking slap in the face.
Yep. Yep.
Anything to say, or are we going to be talking more about Pan's Labyrinth?
We
perhaps?
might be talking about.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep it moving. Number 5, Mr. Beckmann.
So at number 5, we've all talked about this movie enough. It's Brad Anderson's Session 9.
Yay!
This movie is terrifying, and no one really knew about it when it first came out. It was one of those. It went to the Broadway Theater, did it not? Yep.
But I didn't see it till VHS, and on your recommendation, so thank you.
This movie is just a terrifying ghost story. It's, in a lot of ways, it's another kind of version of The Shining.
I got The Shining from it too.
Also,
yeah.
in common with Pan's Labyrinth, it's a terrifying ghost story if you want it to be.
I don't. It could be interpreted another way.
It could.
And
It really could.
I think I was taking it another way because when you said ghost stories, well, yeah, but yeah.
So
I clung to the psychological because that's what I tend to do. But
it preyed on the weak-willed. Those
the
people.
weak and the weary.
Yes. Yeah.
Hello, Gordon.
Yeah. So Session 9, Brad Anderson.
Number 5.
Number 5, this is where Antichrist sits, Lars von Trier.
Wow.
Because it is so bleak and so horrible, and I mean the idea of losing a child, and we'll talk about a lot more with the review, is horrible, but all of the information around that and then where it goes, I did not know what to expect. Other than I saw it because I heard it was controversial, and I kind of like Von Trier. I don't think I like him as a person, but I like his art. Some of the movies I'm like, oh my god, no. And others I really, really like. I like Melancholia as well. So I haven't seen his latest movie, but
The House That Jack Built. Yeah.
yeah, but Antichrist is impactful.
Look,
But I feel like I have been through a lot by the end of it, as have the characters and anybody who sees it. It is not for everyone.
no,
It really is not.
I expected it to be on your list. I guess, at the risk of sounding condescending, I'm disappointed how high it is.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
I get it. I get that it's a horrifying movie, and I get that it's at times beautiful, and I get, like I said earlier, that there's amazing acting in it. But it doesn't get me to liking the movie. It gets me to respecting it, not liking it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I have it on my list. I have it on my list.
But not as high as this.
I can argue that I think there's a lot of value to the movie. I'm surprised it's that high, but I mean, it's on my list.
I can't stop thinking about it. Is the problem? And I maybe don't want to be thinking about it, but it is.
Okay.
It creeps in there.
Anyways.
All right, so in fifth position, I started this list with a vampire movie and saying that I'm not a big vampire man, but when it comes to vampire movies, let the right one in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let
The right one in.
Yep.
It's the best vampire movie ever made.
You
Period.
can make that argument, I think.
I'd have to think about that before committing to that, but it's definitely one of the best ever made.
It's the story of this bullied little boy who makes friends with a vampire who moves in next door, and the repercussions of which are fantastic for him and devastating for everybody around him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's got this absolutely amazing ending to it, where when you're watching it, it's like, this is a happy ending. And slowly the smile melts away from your face
And
as you
realize
think about
how
it.
awful it is.
So far from a happy ending,
Yeah.
but you're still kind of satisfied. Like, it's such a great movie.
It's like if Ingmar Bergman truly made a horror movie in a lot of ways.
2008, Thomas Alfredson, he made a terrible thriller recently called The Snowman.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, even he hates it.
But I wouldn't give up on the director by any. He also did Tinker Tailor Soldier
Which
Spy.
is an
Yeah,
amazing
which is
movie.
pretty solid.
So,
Not horror, but it's just a.
but yeah, I like him a lot, and I liked him right out of the gate. I have warmed to the remake, but honestly, watch the original, please.
Yeah.
And then if you really liked it and you're curious
Then
about
watch,
it,
yeah.
If you,
Unfortunately, I didn't reverse, but that didn't change things. I mean, a great movie is a great movie, and it is a great movie.
Yeah, and it's always tricky if you're anchoring your horror movie on children. It's a fucking crapshoot, and these kids are awesome.
Yep.
So let the right one in.
Well,
Fifth place.
it's kind of ironic because we are crossing over once again. At number 4, I have Let the Right One In. To be perfectly honest, from 4 to 1, the differences are so minute.
Oh,
yeah.
It can be.
Like, to me, they're so
The movies we're
minute
talking about are great.
that on a different day it could be number 1 or at least switch places.
Yeah.
But this is how good these horror movies are. Let the Right One In is both also a very sad movie. Like the opening shot in that sort of beaten down complex and all the snow is falling. You feel such sorrow and empathy for Oscar.
Yeah.
That you just want somebody to like this kid, and in some ways you are that kid. And
I've rarely seen bullying portrayed so well either.
Mm-hmm.
Those bullies are awful. And they love being bullies.
I actually think I might argue it's the best movie about bullying ever.
Right.
Because it doesn't
Sugarcoat it?
It doesn't sugarcoat it at all.
No.
And yet, does the punishment fit the crime? Like with the hard candy argument too.
Yeah.
Is
that pool
I kind
sequence,
of that like what else? Like what he was going to do to that kid? I'm like, hurry up,
Yeah.
and the way it's shot. Oh, that scene is so good. Sorry, I jumped on your
No. That underwater pool sequence at the end, though, is such imaginatively shot and well made, and you already know how powerful our vampire is at that point.
Yeah.
But the fact that she just cuts through those children and such, like that hand going underneath the water is just.
And I argue the one guy isn't a child. I mean, the age that he is, he should know better than to be picking on this little kid. I mean,
yeah. But no, like once again, nothing but love. And like I said, from 4 to 1, I don't think we're going to change all that much.
No, we're pretty close.
I saw your sadness in your heart with Antichrist. But
Sorry, brother. We always have
that's-
trouble with your number 5s. Wasn't your number 5?
That was my number 5. So
The last time your number 5 was the.
was it 4 or 5 for Lost Highway? That
Lost
was
Highway.
Yeah.
We just derailed the whole podcast.
Yeah, you really did. Yeah, and the reviews.
All right.
What's your number 4?
Number 4 is Bill Paxton's Frailty.
Oh, wow.
It's so compact. I rewatched it last night because it was the first one of the ones we're reviewing that we watched, and I just wanted to get more notes down because I just watched it without taking notes the last time to see if this was just kind of a false memory about how much I love this movie, and I was noticing so many great details. Paxton could have been a great filmmaker. He was a terrific, I don't know if it'd be fair to call him a character actor in so many movies. And so that's part of it. But he got one of Matthew McConaughey's best performances in a time when McConaughey was making one crappy choice after another, after having a little bit of an indie thing in the 90s.
This was first wave McConaughey before the McConaissance.
And Paxton gives... I paid more attention to Paxton in this last night watching it. His performance is awesome,
Well,
too.
that's what I was going to say. I am much more impressed with Bill Paxton, the actor, in this movie than I am Bill Paxton, the director. Not that I think it's bad, but the acting is what stood out for me.
Yeah, no,
I do have my problems with the movie, and I'll get into more of that when we actually talk about the review. But I have... he obviously felt passionate about the project, and he was really into this character. And I don't know this, but part of me intuits that him directing it probably helped get it made, right? Him putting his back and shoulder and heart and mind behind it. And it's a cool choice, and I can understand wanting to play that role.
To me, it feels like one of those great Stephen King short stories.
Right.
It has a bit of a Stephen King vibe to it because of the town, some of the, overt religious
stuff that's going on
throughout. So
it's also interesting. Both your movies have very deep religious themes that you picked. I don't know if that was delivered or not. Fun fact. Do you want to say something about Frailty? It's not actually on my list.
No, it's not on my list either. But I really like it. I think all 3 performances, like the boys and the father, are.
Those kids are great.
Are outstanding, and honestly, the Matthew McConaughey character as a villain is kind of the nice little,
I walked away liking it a lot, but not loving it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I've stayed.
Yeah.
But we'll get into it.
But then the question is he a villain?
Right.
When you rewatch it, is he a villain? So.
Wake up, I've got something to tell you.
What's wrong?
There are demons among us. I can see the demons, while other people can't.
I'm scared, Dad.
Nothing that crazy could be real.
The angel told me that God would be sending weapons.
Maybe you just dreamed it. Maybe you're not right in the head.
God will be sending a list of the first 7 demons.
These are people's names.
And they'll look like people, but they're not.
Dad made up this whole thing. Do you understand?
Well, if it has to be done, it has to be done.
Is that true?
Why would I make it up?
It's all a big lie. I don't want to run away.
You are hiding something from me.
What is it you think I'm hiding?
When I lay my hands on them, I'll reveal them for what they truly are.
I got a pretty good idea what them bodies are.
I'll tell.
Craziest thing I've heard in a long time.
Ah! Check the rose garden.
I don't believe a word of it.
But it's true.
Bill Paxton,
Those were demons. Why can't you see that?
Matthew McConaughey,
Tell me the truth.
Sometimes truth defies reason.
You're crazy.
Only demons should fear me. You're not a demon, are you?
Oh, I love Bill Paxton. I would never say anything bad about Bill Paxton. I won't say anything bad about Bill Paxton. He didn't direct enough movies, because I think you're right. He could have blossomed into a properly good director. But as I said when we mentioned it in the ranks, for me, it's the performance here and the character here that is the most interesting part. And I'm going to do a thing that I criticize other reviewers for doing, but part of my problem with Frailty, over above there's great performances and the cool reveals that the plot keeps giving to you, is that I think this is a much more interesting, much deeper, much better movie if there's no real demons in it. I think if this is a story about a guy who's crazy and a religious extremist and raising these two boys to be crazy religious extremists, and it was about this psychological battle with himself. But there's no doubt, for him, he sees a vision from God. He's got to kill the demons. The demons are whoever he decides are demons, and he's going to help his sons bury the bodies. Like, I can see an actor looking at that. This is a meal of a character. But for me, when we get to the big twist, I won't reveal it here.
More than one twist.
Yeah. But for me, it's much more interesting as a tragic psychological portrait of this isolated family being poisoned by the thing that's supposed to be enriching them. Once it becomes a I gotcha twisty thriller, and there really are demons, and for me, the full potential of the idea gets deflated. The good news is that the performances are wall-to-wall excellent. The characters are excellent, and the way that things are revealed to us are really good. It fundamentally works in every way, and I do like the movie. But I feel it's one of these things that I've said a lot in the podcast. It's a good movie haunted by the great movie I feel it could have been. So, like, I want to be liking it more than I do. And I like it enough to recommend it. It's on my wall. It's in my collection. And, like, I enjoyed watching it again. But I felt the exact same way. I was just like, in a way, and I'm usually the opposite of this, but in a way, the real nuts and bolts supernatural aspect of the story is the least interesting thing happening here. So that's where I start with Frailty. And thank you for choosing.
Yeah. I have nothing but good things to say about Frailty. I think it's a fine thriller. I wasn't as disappointed with the supernatural stuff. I was buying it. I kind of thought this and Jesus Camp would be a sort of a great double header.
That'd be interesting.
What would happen to, like, one of the children who went through this sort of education and lo and behold becomes a father to, like, two boys, and off they go, because this is really sort of talking about alt-right religious extremism taken to a hilt that is very much alive in the States right now. That sort of weird evangelical aggressiveness. And that in itself, I think, is a very, very scary thing. When we get these sort of like cult-like movies, whether it's the Sacrament or Midsummer or whatever, that sort of religious terror is a very real, palpable thing. I guess I saw the twist coming in a lot of ways. Like when it did happen, nothing really scared me. I knew exactly which boy it was, so it wasn't a big shocker to me. But I definitely enjoyed the ride. It's always good to see Powers Booth, a criminally underrated actor.
Yes, yeah,
who
he's very good in it.
He shows up.
He's always very good, but
who shows up, and I'm sort of lamenting how talented Bill Paxton was. I mean, was he a writer of this?
I don't think he wrote it, but
the writer is Brent Hanley.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, clearly he loved the story and had a talent behind the camera, as well as giving it sort of a career-defining performance in a lot of ways in Frailty. So I have nothing but good things. It's just that the twist didn't. I saw coming, so it didn't as shock me as such.
I think you could watch this movie 3 times and have 3 different interpretations. So who's to say the demons actually exist?
The movie says that these demons exist.
Yeah.
Well, do we have a reliable narrator? Like,
no,
can we trust this guy?
I think at the end of the movie,
he actually believes this stuff.
His dad's. You're saying that I missed that it actually is just strictly psychological.
Because we don't know some of the stuff. I feel like it's skiing on thin ice not to do spoilers with this thing. But
I can definitely
being delicate.
I can definitely sort of buy the sort of open-endedness of the morality open-endedness of the ending, where is he or isn't he actually a demon hunter, or is this yet another serial killer that we've seen sort of unravel and before our eyes and will go on killing. I do catch that sort of ambivalentness of the ending, where is it or is it not all in their head, but I do sort of side on your side a little bit that the demons actually are real.
Well, that's what we see. I mean, that's shown to us.
But
I think there could be a viewing of it where you look at it and think, okay, these people are just screwed in the head.
Yeah.
You know, and this, the power of the father to the son, because you see this in some ways, that how you were raised is how ultimately you end up raising your children and believing. And we see this through generations in small town Texas where this is set, you know. And I just haven't thought of the different way. If I watch this movie one way, I could see Bill Paxton as almost a villain. Like he doesn't like he's a sweet guy, but he is a dangerous human being and should not be in charge of these boys. And we could look at that. We could look at another one where he's a hero. And then there's another one where we are just observing what happens with this kind of indoctrination. I think I wanted to give it some airtime and more attention than it's ever gotten, in my view. And I respect it a lot. And it's one that's... For me, I saw it in the theaters and it stayed with me for years.
The war between the two boys, one of which is skeptical of the truth of the dad's visions, the other one who's 100% a believer, and so who we're assuming Matthew McConaughey is the believer, because here he is, right? They kind of, well, they don't necessarily switch poles, but once the commitment is made that this person's a demon, the movie shows the demon, and they commit that they have to kill. I guess we are getting into spoilers here in order for me to justify my position.
We don't see the demon initially.
No.
We just see, like, what's...
He says they're a demon, and we have to believe it, and we take his word for it. But once the brother is taken out of the picture, what possible choice would he have but to believe? Once that has happened, you have to believe it. Otherwise, you're a cold-blooded fucking murderer, right?
Yeah.
So this guy is here hunting the cop.
Yeah.
That actually felt painfully obvious to me. But I liked the movie enough that I let it go. But there's something about a movie that thinks it's got an ace up its sleeve when it doesn't that rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that the movie was playing Is He or Isn't He? Until that kid...
Did you see the last scene coming? To me, that was kind of a... Because I think I probably did. I'd have to go back. I don't know what I was thinking when I first saw it.
Sorry, what are you talking about?
Like, there's more to the McConaughey character than we're given, like, beyond the sort of the main plot twist there.
Right.
That's revealed in the very last scene of the film.
Yeah, well, I think it's what you're saying about it, but it doesn't necessarily... In movie language, I think it tells us after that point, it's real. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's definitely how I felt.
I'm just trying to get us to think about this in a different way.
Yeah.
As, like, I just don't want to dismiss it as, like, some sort of, like, stupid demon. It's just a very creepy, almost short story type of a piece that I admire greatly.
And that, you know, it's a happy ending per se.
It is not. I am so disturbed by the end of it, and
more people are going to end up buried in that field, and it's probably not for the good, right? And if God is running the show, God is an evil fucker at this point, right? This is the story of
this
Job.
Feels more Old Testament than New Testament in that way, and there's something about, like, the Old Testament stuff, and which is alluded to in so many different ways through the film that really kind of gets under my skin for whatever reason. So you mentioned that I had religious films are the ones that I chose, and that seems to work for me. You know, some people they could see Exorcist movies and it has no impact. That stuff really gets to me for whatever reason, where nothing about Drag Me to Hell or Tremors scares me in the least. I can sit through the whole thing. That was entertaining. Now I'll move on with my life. You know, but something like this really stays with me. And Paxton's performance, I think I got caught up with the flashiness of McConaughey's performance the first couple times I saw it, but Paxton is so good because he is so sincere, and he just does not understand why his son is not seeing the demons that he is seeing.
It's breaking his heart.
It is, and he tries to do everything, and I think he does something which does the opposite of what he thinks by he locks his son away for weeks, and they keep going back to the 6 days. The seventh day, on the seventh day, he checked with him, and he still didn't pray and didn't believe, so he locks him again. Took him 6 days of work to build that the crawl space shed where they're going to deal with kill these demons.
It's a kill room. It's a killing room.
You know,
just be real.
but
yeah,
kill room. But there was a ton of Old Testament, biblical allusions in there that worked really well for me. And there's just subtle things, and when you watch it more than once, the very first time we see the boys in the very first flashback, the one is singing a hymn, a church hymn, and he said, "Oh, sing along with me," to the other brother, and like, "No, I don't want to do that." And then they have a conversation about wanting to go to an R-rated movie. I want to go see The Warriors. Oh, well, that's an R-rated movie. We shouldn't be doing that. This already, like, okay, the one is, he's young enough to be this devoted Christian boy, and the other one is going through that stage where he's going to question his father's beliefs. And
interpretation 3, of course, is that he is a demon.
Yeah.
Which is what they're implying. But like, again, it's a choose your own adventure, I guess. But for me, I don't know why. Maybe I'd have to watch the movie again to clock the exact thing that told me, okay, the demons are real. But there was a dividing line in the movie where they were playing with it to when they stopped playing with it. I also think structurally, with the gotcha thing, I'm sorry to jump back a little bit. If you start a movie with a guy sitting across the table with another guy about to unfold a yarn, it's almost built in that there's going to be a little gotcha Twilight Zone thing coming to it.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about the presentation that just tells you that.
Yeah.
Well, going back to the Usual Suspects.
Right.
It's
not a very good example, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or just like where the villains, or at the end of 7, the villains on the other side of the table seemingly giving you a confession, but you fucking know there's another
shoe to drop.
Something's coming, and you know
it's not going to be nice.
And that's a familiar beat to play, and here it is again, but I think fairly well. I really like I said, I'm a broken record. I like the acting. I think a little bit more than I like the script in the end of the day, but it's completely workable. Yeah. It's a completely.
I liked it all. It spent a lot of time as my number one.
I feel like we're beating it.
I'm being hard on it because it wasn't on my list. In a way, it's like this is really good movie.
It is a good movie, and it's a small movie. That's why I'm defending it quite a bit more.
It's a film that I think it will get lost also, or has the fear of being lost in the whole cinematic void in a lot of ways. So I understand. Look, Frailty is a great movie. I don't know what more else.
It's just in a busy decade. It's a movie that got lost, and I wish it.
Yeah,
more people
it certainly doesn't deserve to be dismissed the way it seemed to be. Like, it came and went with leaving.
It was a bad time of year for it to come out.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely give it its day in court. And it's one of those movies that a lot of people like more than I did. The Identity, which you mentioned in your special, is another one of those movies that a lot of people I hear saying really, really liked it. And for me, like, it was just one of those things where the twist fundamentally didn't work. In this movie, the twist works enough. I just wish that I didn't. I wasn't ahead of the movie, and I just wish that.
But
was the case.
we all watch a lot of movies,
That's
so
the
it's
problem.
tough not to be. Yeah.
I've often said about those people who spend their lives reviewing movies, and like I've been doing this podcast since 2013. Does it change the way you watch movies? Like,
probably.
If you didn't spend all your time thinking on some level on this analysis, how does it compare to what? You know, can you just fucking watch a movie?
Because that's where your "it's fine" comes in.
It's fine.
It's fine.
This is better than fine. I will say this is good, but I think it falls short of great. I think you're saying it's kind of great, right?
Yeah, it's this little movie that I love, so
that's great. I hate to be repetitive, you guys. In fourth place, Session 9, 2001, Brad Anderson.
Yeah.
Genuinely frightening psychological movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that central performance by Peter Mullen is just epic.
Yeah,
He's a great actor.
He's so good in that movie.
Yeah.
I always think about this scene between he and his nephew where he's sitting on the graveyard after, quote, talking to his wife on the phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have this little exchange, and all it is his nephew trying to give him a pep talk. And he is so fucking past being able to be pep talked, right?
Yeah.
But he's so genuinely touched that his
nephew
nephew's
cares.
trying. I fucking just that's
nephew's
an
so
amazing
sincere.
scene. And it's just a tiny moment in this movie, just wall to wall full of great performances and great moments.
Yeah, there's
we've gone on about Session 9, but like,
Yeah.
Well, it's all three of our lists, so it must be great.
Yeah.
It must be great if we all think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to say anything more about Session 9?
No.
You said it all, dude.
Top 3, boys.
All right. So when I first made this list, this was actually number 1, and it took a lot of convincing to come down because, like I said, from 4 to 1, it's like such slivers.
It gets tough. It gets tough.
That separates them. And I'm almost afraid that he's reached his pinnacle because I haven't seen his latest one, to be perfectly honest. But Neil Marshall's The Descent is a wall to wall terrifying movie that I just don't think gets made in this day and age. I love the fact that it's an all single gendered cast. It's all women cast. I think it's the most proper monster movie on this list. I think.
Can you lean forward for me, brother?
Sorry. I think one of the most terrifying sequences back to back was when the woman gets caught, she's way down into a tunnel in the cave and she gets stuck and they're trying to get her out, and that sense of claustrophobia, and they finally get through that. And then the monsters show up.
Yeah. It's a terrifying movie before the monsters show up, and I think that's kind of the brilliant thing about it.
Yeah.
Well, the setting is everything there.
The only reason I put a couple of films above it is because I saw the original European version where it's not the happy ending,
right.
And even though I don't like the ploy they have, where we soon realize that she's hasn't escaped it. That most likely she is going to die. Whoops, false ending is the whole dream thing, which I think is sort of like a lame device.
It is. Yeah.
No, they should have stuck with the original ending, and they should not have made a sequel to it.
Yeah.
But those are the two problems with the movie.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
In this genre, they'll make a sequel for anything.
Yeah, honestly, a hybrid of 1 and 2, where she's running up the tubble and she sees the light, and then the monsters pull her back. End credits. To me, that would have solved it. Otherwise, there's not one thing I would choose differently with that movie. Neil Marshall's The Descent is a terrifying movie.
It don't play.
And I can't believe it. I have it at 3.
All right. What's your
number 3? It's one you've talked about. And so the question is it a horror movie or not? Requiem for a Dream.
Okay.
Darren Aronofsky.
I saw this coming.
I mean, it's to me the ultimate just say no to drugs movie. I mean, this is the one. Traffic came out the same year. And it was beyond an R rating, wasn't it? Like, it got some unrated or something. And I was like, this is what they should be showing high school kids about hard drugs, if they actually want to make an impact. And just the third act is so hard to watch.
It's traumatizing.
And we are...
Yeah, but that's Frank Selby Jr. though. That's the American writer.
And Darren Aronofsky, frankly.
He likes as a filmmaker,
yeah.
he does that. I mean, and this is
so
effective.
I get your decision to put it on the list. I get that it's a horrifying, traumatizing film. I just decided to not call it a horror movie.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I understand.
But I'm not in my head.
Anybody, everybody, ever. This was the year where I officially stopped watching the Oscars.
Because Julia won and Roberts won
Watch
instead of...
Erin Brockovich, which is a perfectly fine movie, by the way.
Very well directed.
But Julia Roberts is perfectly fine in it. And then watch Ellen Burstyn in Requiem for a Dream, and you fucking tell me that Julia Roberts gave the better performance. Okay? Because... that's just tacitly.
It's a silly thing of comparing the two because they're two completely different movies.
I get it, but that was the decision that Oscar voters were faced with, and fuck that. Ellen Burstyn, that's one of the best performances, period, from anyone, period.
Yeah.
Ever. Period.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
So I am with you.
I have this thorn in my side about that because it's just like everybody needs to like hug Ellen Burstyn. It should be National Hug Ellen Burstyn Day.
And she's having to act off of herself at points too, when she's having the hallucination that she's on the talk show thing, and she's in perfectly healthy, very in your face, very very creepy, but this is to herself, and where she's looking so thin and frail and older than she actually is. It is a remarkable performance, but her character is not the only one who suffers.
No.
I mean, when you see the what's coming out of the veins there,
the infected
arm, losing limbs, and in some ways, the Marlon Wayans character gets off the easiest.
Just going to jail and detoxing. A living nightmare, but better than anyone else did.
But he's he has this trauma to do with his mother and stuff. It is such it's a great movie, and to me it is horror, and it's real. It gets in the heads of addicts in a way that some movies do not.
I'll say this: it was one of those movies that when I saw it, I was traumatized by it. I was affected emotionally. It hit me in the gut. But part of me couldn't wait to show it to someone too. I wanted to share that experience with someone, even though it was just so intense. I hadn't seen anything like it ever, and it was a bunch of people upping their game. I did at the time wasn't that impressed with Jared Leto, the actor. I had been quoted as saying that Jennifer Connelly is beautiful, but she's never going to win an Oscar. Boy, was I wrong about that. But she upped her game here considerably. Marlon Wayans? Never before, and I'm sorry, never since have I seen him
with the scary movie.
I've never seen him commit to a role like that before, and I fucking wish he would, because he's amazing and it.
Shows what he could do.
So I get it. I respect the choice, but for me, I was making this
And I like that it was the diet pills thing in there. It wasn't just heroin we were talking about in that film.
Once again, I'm all nodding approval.
Everybody's a junkie to something, right?
Yeah.
Like we are for horror movies.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in third position, a bunch of British women go spelunking in the Appalachian Mountains. And it's claustrophobic, and then it turns into a ridiculously wet monster movie. It's man, do they ever turn on the faucets. And they also do a good job of making you like all these girls, so you think maybe it's going to work out for them. No, not at all. It's completely wet, completely horrifying. I remember showing this to my wife, and she did like it. But before, like Lee was saying, before the monsters showed up, she was so crawling out of her skin.
It's unnerving.
The claustrophobia was getting to her so
going down into
just the whole thing. That they're going someplace bad, and they keep on dropping more information. And actually, it's not a discovered cave system, and no, people don't know where we are. And Jesus. The only thing, and it's not a hit against the movie. Seriously, I mean. It's one of these people do everything wrong. They get themselves killed. And it also, again, it starts industry standard. A terrible tragedy happens to our main character. And how many movies start that way? And this broken friendship between the two, and they had the same lover. Again, very familiar, but the execution scores a lot of points for me here. And that movie is scary.
Once again, I saw it during the day in my apartment in South Korea, and by the end, I was unnerved. And like I said, the only reason that it's not higher is just because little things about the ending. Because the other two are just they're so good.
You can pick a thread, and we'll talk about that when we get to our 2 and 1. Because I think we're gonna have the same 2 and 1, but are they going to be in the same order?
I wish I liked it more than I did.
Oh well.
Okay.
I just didn't keep my
attention. You're not a monster movie guy, you said.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it. But the setting itself too is. You're right. It's horrifying before the monsters are introduced. So, all right.
Number 2. It's to you, Mr. Beckmann.
Okay. So I can't believe I'm putting this movie number 2. That's something else. And the only reason why it made number 2 is because number 1 I think has a more ballsy, horrific ending.
Right.
But the acting in this movie, and it's from Danny Boyle, and it revitalized the zombie genre. Like it did. I think this is the one that really kicked it into high gear. And it's a digitally shot movie where I thought, for a long time, I didn't think a digitally shot movie could be beautiful as well. But there's some shots in this movie that are just gorgeous to look at. But 28 Days Later is a terrifying movie. Hands out to Brendan Gleeson, who plays the father, who I do think gives the performance to the movie. Even though we
instantly likable, so you flag him for death.
Yeah. Just the scene where they're watching the horses run and he blows a kiss and everything. Like such an amazing performance by everyone. We got introduced to Cillian Murphy here, but the scene where the blood hits his eye, you're just no, and it's such a well acted scene, and you knew in some ways it was coming, but it's
heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. This is a heartbreaking movie, and the only reason that it hit number 2 is I liked the extra credit end better, where they all died in the car.
Well, no, Jim died. The girls go to an uncertain fate, but originally Jim dies on another hospital table. Yeah. Like the movie starts with him waking up in a hospital bed, and he gets shot by the Christopher Eccleston character, which still happens. Yeah. But in the other one, they drive him to a hospital and try and treat the wound, and he dies on the table.
I actually like that.
This is a relatively happy ending.
Yeah, comparatively, this is a much happier ending that they ended up going for. But it feels a little bit disjunct from the rest of the movie. I still like it, but it does feel like something that they shot later, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does.
I don't know what the third act is what kills me. I mean, that's
the ending. I get what you're saying, but I mean, I still really like the original ending to 28 Days Later. I almost feel like I'm hurting your feelings also putting it at number 2. I remember the thing.
We're going to talk about it.
I really hurt everybody's feelings.
Even when we first saw it together and all, just the sort of emotionality, the emotional context in which we saw it as well. This movie is a terrifying movie, and
it was a great theatrical experience too. I have to say.
No, I didn't see it in the theater. Yeah, that's the problem. I saw Weeks in the theater, but I didn't see.
Right. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is, to me, as perfect a vampire movie as you can get. Let the right one in.
Well, you're not going to hear anyone fighting.
And the best movie about bullying, and that comment you made about we were all kind of feeling like that boy.
Yeah.
I just wish that at points in my life that there was that vampire girl, as awful as is, that would show up, who she cannot communicate with any other kids.
We can identify.
So this sweet, odd love story is in there with an insane amount of violence, and you don't often talk about Swedish horror movies.
Yeah,
but it is.
They happen though.
They do.
They do.
I mean, it's just by this much that it's not number 1. I think
one of the few scenes that they didn't include in the remake, which I thought was interesting, was when a bunch of cats attacks one of the infected people.
Oh yeah, that's
really
cool.
Visceral scene.
Yeah.
And you wonder how they got to obviously they're not real cats. They couldn't be the way they're being flung about, but it's pretty hard and convincing. I really liked that.
Yeah.
And the immolation scene, the way they erupt into flame, or the trust game where he wants to see what happens if he doesn't invite her, so she shows him. Just bleeding out of all of her orifices.
No!
Okay,
what am I doing to you? No, that's so horrible. Because he's such a sweet kid.
Yeah, but if it wasn't real to him before then, it's fucking real now.
In the movie too, where it's such a risk to have a movie where children are centering it. Child actors.
Oh no!
And
they the filmmakers took a huge gamble with your 2 leads as children.
She's awesome.
And they were great.
No problems at all.
No.
So, like Lee, I wrestled with number 1 and 2, and it's the same movies. The reason I put 28 Days Later in second position at the end of it is because of one scene. And the movie calls itself on it, but it's stupid. Cillian Murphy is actually heard to say out loud, "This is a shite idea." Do you know why this is a shite idea? Because it's just obviously a shite idea. they drive their car over top of all the other cars in the tunnel somehow. Like it's not even explained how.
Yeah.
And then they blow a tire, and the sequence amazingly shot, and like the rats fleeing the tunnel, and the shadows of the oncoming infected. Everything about the execution of that scene is fucking amazing. But it's fundamentally stupid. And it's the only thing in the entire movie that's fundamentally stupid. I guess will conditionally agree with you, Jason, that like I think both half of the movie are really good, but the first half of the movie is amazing. And the second half of the movie is really good to me, but it's there's that sequence where Jim decides to go back and it starts raining. And they get these crazy shots of him in the rain where he starts to look and move like we've been seeing the infected. And it's just like, this is a zombie movie being made by a fucking master. And thank you. So I get it. Once we get to the film, I always took issue with how crazy and how bad those guys were so soon. If this has indeed been 1 month, they've gone this far off the board in 1 month. Like that is a big pill to swallow, but happily they have people like Christopher Eccleston to help sell it. But I get it that it's not as strong as the first half.
But it's an anti-establishment, like military taking over. I think it's a little bit of a comment in there that he's trying to make with that.
I like how it's handled too. When Christopher Eccleston finally says it out loud, you can hear in his voice that he knows it's completely wrong. And he has to almost spit it out. I promised them women.
No, the one's a girl.
But the implication is there. She's not always going to be a girl, even if they care. Which, let's be real,
they don't care at all.
So again, I just had a hard time believing how evil they were. Given the stakes of the situation, they had bigger fish to fry, and it had only been a month. If it had been a few years, I think it would have been a better sell. But in a month, no.
You're doing a better job of articulating where I got stuck on this movie.
But I love the movie.
I know you do.
The scene where she tries to convince the young girl to take the pills so it'll take the pain away.
It'll make you not care.
Yeah, make you not care. It's such a heartbreaking, terrifying scene.
And it's one of those things where a guy gets his eyes pushed into his head and you couldn't be happier about it. So,
just like those bullies getting like mowed down and the right one in. So.
Well, Lee will tell you what our number one selection is then.
This movie is the epitome of despair. It really, really is. It is also catapulted by across the board amazing performances. Whether it is what's her name? Marcia Gay Harden, who once again the Oscars completely miss it. They miss another amazing performance.
That character could be high camp so easily. It could be so awful so easily. You need someone who knows what the fuck they're doing. And Marcia Gay Harden knows what the fuck she's doing.
That monologue scene where she's talking to herself is perfect. It's perfect from the writing to the execution, all of it. It's also, I think, one of the the phrases on the movie poster perfectly capture what that movie's about, and its fear changes everything. And that's true. It also talks about the culture of fear, which I don't think also gets talked about enough. Zodiac did the same thing, but what happens to a community when there's the threat outside and we start to eat each other? It captures that so well.
And I was complaining about that a little bit just now with 28 Days Later. But I think the Lovecraftian super demonic creatures add an extra layer here. All of those people in the supermarket, this is not something that's handleable. So I believe them falling apart rapidly more than I do these hard-ass military guys.
But everybody in that cast, I don't want to take away too much because you are going to talk about it as well. I'm going to say it has probably one of the most nihilistically dark, horrific endings in movies
devastating
ever.
If the guy who writes the novella tells you, if I'd have thought of that, I'd put it in the book, which he did. He loves the ending to the movie. Stephen King's a big fan of it. I don't know what bigger compliment you could pay Frank Darabont.
I almost wish Darabont did all of his movies.
Right?
Because we see so many people who do not handle it well, including King himself sometimes when he tries to be a filmmaker.
I'm going to jump back to you, number one, since we have the same number one. So I'm going to just have our discussion about The Mist.
Okay.
There's a scene about the halfway mark of the movie where Thomas Jane has a conversation with his son.
Yeah.
And he promises his son that no matter how things work out, he's not going to get eaten by monsters.
Yep.
That just is not going to fucking happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know what? He keeps his promise.
I know.
In the worst possible way.
Yeah. But it's devastating. And this is B-movie territory. And I think one of the reasons I was talking about preferring to a large degree the black and white version is because no matter what you pull away from it, it'll still hit you emotionally. Yeah. Because just how nihilistic, but believably nihilistic it becomes. It could be black and white Mayberry, everything's perfect, and then one day everything goes completely south. Your life just got thrown off a cliff, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And it seems strange to put this CGI monster fest with a bunch of people going crazy in a grocery store at number one. But I remember reading this at a young age and thinking to myself, oh, I hope they make a movie out of this, and I hope it's good. And then 20 years later, that happened.
They got Darabont to do it,
and Darabont did it, and he fucking killed it.
Yeah.
And that ending is not just shocking, but it took real guts.
It
took real guts,
and
he would have had to fight it off. I guarantee
it's a studio film, right?
Yeah.
I
guarantee you the studio would have said, "Look, we'll give you an extra $20 million for your creature effects."
They did.
And he's like, "No, I'll make it cheap, but I'm making my movie."
The ending was a point of contention where they would have given him more money if they would have changed the ending. They were afraid of it.
And I get it. I could I almost wish that I could sit outside of a theater in a showing of The Mist and just watch the parade of gray faces that spilled out of that theater. You just walk out of it catatonic.
If we'd been ushers at the time or something,
I can't believe the negative reviews that this movie got and it wasn't financially successful.
I have a theory about that.
What's that?
A lot of times when people get hit emotionally by something, they resent it.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, I've showed this movie to him, and his wife did not like it.
Yeah.
She reacted toxically to it, but she was very defensive. No, it's not personal. It's just that the movie's awful. But clearly, she was disturbed by the movie. And the movie wasn't awful. The movie disturbed her, and it worked exceedingly well on her. But she almost refused to admit it. It was just this awful thing. And I think that might have been part of the critical rebuke, to be honest.
Yeah.
People don't like that slap in the face ending. They don't like going home feeling like someone just pissed in their cornflakes.
Yeah.
But it's memorable, and it accomplished the ending. In the book, this screed of paper the guy's been writing on is just abandoned at a gas station or something, and they're gonna go drive until the gas runs out, and basically make it up after that, and that's it, the end. And Darabont takes us to that finish line. He finished King's story amazingly well. And he made a movie full of familiarity, epically scary to me. And it seems artificially high at number one, but I think for me, The Mist's got to be number one.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by the choice.
Yeah.
But I admire it a lot. And I want to see this black and white version because I think the block for me is the creatures.
Right.
Every time I see the creatures, I would get myself out of the movie. All the human stuff I was so into.
The CGI feels less CGI in black and white. I mean, I don't think you'll be fooled.
But if it's for the integrity of the end he wanted, I kind of admire that too.
I didn't mind the CGI. I didn't care. I was watching such a compelling movie that.
And again, if he had a few more $1 million, he probably could have cleaned up some of the softer stuff. But again, it looks better black and white. I love it. Sorry.
When your movie starts with a pan around the room and you see the gunslinger and the Thing movie posters,
that's
gorgeous hands.
Yes.
Saying we're going to reference this movie and this story and next to Seven, Old Boy, what's another devastating ending? Arlington Road,
Planet of the Apes. I don't know,
endings where your genitalia and heart are removed at the same time. That movie is just one long kiss goodbye where you need whiskey after. So like rye whiskey. It's just such an amazing horror film, and I just can't believe that Frank Darabont isn't clinging to some sort of prestigious award because of it.
Well, word on the street is he does have the rights to The Long Walk.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be good.
Fantastic, early Stephen King novella, and I would love to see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I keep thinking of, the ones that haven't been done yet.
Yeah.
Because they're in the remakes and
we're getting into another age of Stephen King adaptations.
Good.
Don't worry about that.
I'm happy about that.
I'm very curious because I don't even have a guess.
You don't? Yeah.
What's
Okay,
your number
let's see
one?
what Lee. What's your guess?
I honestly don't know, to be perfectly honest, because our lists are so different.
Mm-hmm.
I could guess Parsons, but no, I have no clue. I honestly
and you have no idea.
clue.
No. In some ways, I feel like this is an obvious choice. And it's Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's as perfect a movie as Guillermo del Toro has ever made. And just this is another one of the ones where I guess I go back to seeing it in the theater for the first time, and I wasn't quite sure what it was going to be. I got more of like a fairy tale, maybe quasi family vibe from it.
Right.
But then I saw it has an R rating. Oh, there must be something more interesting here. And it became so much darker than I imagined, and had this enormous impact. This was the year where almost like the three Mexican filmmakers they were coming out, because they had three movies all coming out around the same time. I think Children of Men, Babel, and this came out. And Pan's Labyrinth really had an impact on me, and I did not expect that at all. And we have this creature stuff happening, which is really, really dark, and one of the most inventive, horrible characters. That creature with the eyeballs. And
like I'm all nodding my head in approval.
But what's happening on the surface with the Spanish Civil War is so much worse. With this horrible captain who's pretty much enslaved this poor widow. He likely killed her husband and has now claimed her just because he wants a male son, and he doesn't care. If she dies in childbirth, just has to pass on his name. And
Guillermo has a real thing with villains who vanity gets attacked.
Yeah.
The main villain in The Devil's Backbone is really vain about his looks.
Yes.
And that double-speaking spy in The Shape of Water gets shot in the mouth.
Yeah.
It's just
there's a
kind
thing
of
with
an
mouths
interesting
too.
Thing he goes to again and again.
When that the woman who's a part of the resistance, but she's kind of like his housekeeper running the house, when she takes out, and we knew it was going to happen, that this knife was going to come into play.
Yeah.
But that attack is just so violent. Like cuts up the smile on his face, and then he goes and he stitches it. Then he takes that drink and then feels the burn, and then we see the blood come up. It's like taking one great idea and then adding and then adding and then adding. And
Tom Hiddleston gets stabbed in the face in Crimson Peak too. Sorry, that.
There's something with his.
He's got a real obsession with this.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I hadn't thought of that before, but
I have no problem with that pick. I couldn't guess because I wasn't sure if it was we'd already mentioned, or if is there some Cronenberg pick that I missed or something. I was trying to guess what it is, but I have zero problem. With that
no, same with me.
Very different than The Mist, obviously, and I'm sort of surprised that Lee agreed with me. I thought that The Mist was a little bit of a left turn for me for number one.
I thought it could have possibly hit somebody's top 10.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't see it coming as number one.
And
it's just kind of like the Tremors in here, but I'm not going to argue it as hard because I love The Mist.
And I've been quoted it's like I've sucked the dick of Danny Boyle so completely, and I've gone on about people say what's some of your favorite movies? They're like, well, I guess 28 Days Later's got to be in the conversation.
Yeah. I thought 28 Days Later was probably going to be number one, and Shaun of the Dead was going to be number two.
Right.
And that's when I was.
It hurt to
Shaun
put
of the
Shaun
Dead
that
back.
low. It really did hurt to put Shaun that low, but no, respect. I think I'm not going to wag my finger too hard. I guess the closest, like I said, for you, The Mist is too low on your list, and Antichrist is too high. Switch those two places around.
And 28 Days Later, obviously, is.
Yeah. But those are the two ones that really made me raise my eyebrows a little bit. But we're going to survive this, friend.
This is not Lost Highway.
I guess we could go on to the honorable mentions. Like I said, I did up a top 100. starting basically with the ones that I mentioned as honorable mentions during the list, but like, it was a fucking amazingly strong decade for horror movies.
Genre cinema in general, well, that
it seems to me, maybe if I went back and looked harder, it seemed to me that more of them were good than were bad.
Yeah.
Like they were just overperforming generally.
I didn't like the Hollywood system in that decade.
Right.
I mean, it was just special effects because they could do more, but story was not important anymore. And that's my issue with the Gladiators and the Lord of the Rings and the bad Lucas Star Wars trilogy. We just got all of these big budget billion-dollar films. They're empty. They look good, but there's nothing to them, and that's what I got so cynical about. And I think that I was tuning out a little bit, and I do credit you in this decade for kind of bringing me back to revisiting some stuff and like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was at the time, you know.
Did you want to hit some specifics?
All right, so I'm going to throw some love out to both the original Saw and Hostel films. Once again, films that I don't think we're close to making the top 30 list, but I have to acknowledge because they did create. I said the Hostel films really helped brought in the torture porn movies, which were a big part of this decade. But the first Saw film is sort of your better than average serial killer thriller. It mostly takes place in a room, which I thought. I mean, it's pretty serviceable.
It's influential.
Yeah.
I get why it started a franchise. Like I've just always been that guy who never got the feel of the Saw franchise. Even the first one, I just thought it was another derivative wannabe 7.
Yeah,
but that's
seems like Silence of the Lambs led to 7, led to this.
To at least acknowledge it.
No, absolutely.
It was an important movie in there. It was a runner-up for me.
I also wanted to acknowledge Paranormal Activity because there's things I do like about it. I'm not saying it's not a terrible horror movie. It is. There's lots of things to like, and it also spawned a huge series, so I'd have to mention that. I can't believe I didn't put Shaun of the Dead on the list. There's a lot of films I'm just like, oh. So Shaun of the Dead, I wanted to mention. I was worried for a while that you were going to put George A. Romero's Land of the Dead on here as well, but
I mean, I think it gets a bad rap, but I don't think it makes the top 30. No.
It was a runner-up for me.
See,
it actually was, yeah.
So that was also I just couldn't, honestly put it in the top 30.
Right.
I liked it enough, but I was worried that at some point. I want to give also a shout out to The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Because I think Jennifer Carpenter is amazing in that movie, and it's sort of a better than average Exorcist.
Big time,
possession movie because of her. So I wanted to, do the shout out for that. Slither was another one that it hurt to leave off the list. I have really no good excuse except to say I went with some guilty pleasures, but I want to acknowledge James Gunn's crazy Slither, and also
that movie really is fucking office rocker.
It's just wow, wow, and also Orphan. The filmmaker actually made 2 really good horror movies in that decade. Was House of Wax and Orphan. I thought were pretty really strong horror films.
I liked House of Wax. People hated it. I guess because Paris Hilton was in it, but
the design of it was really strong.
I mean the makeup.
No. I mean it's essentially a slasher film, but also The Burrowers. Like really, The Burrowers is a terrifying movie.
Not a feel-good number.
Yeah. Once again, I have no real excuse for leaving this film off the top 30. It just, I don't know. Those the monsters, man, and what they're capable of is just horrifying. So those are some honorable mentions.
Do you have any you'd like to throw out?
I have a lot here. Some of them are doubled up here. It's a strange one because we talk about family movies dealing with horror. Monster House is a very inventive film. I mean, it doesn't make this list because obviously
it's a kids movie.
It's a kids movie. It's just a little bit darker than usual kids movie. The Fourth Kind is one I've wrestled with. There's some really bad stuff in it, but it kind of bothered me when I saw it. So
I didn't dislike it.
The Exorcism of Emily Rose was number 31. I almost feel like because it creeps me out in some scenes, it probably should have been on there. That's the one I felt the most guilty about. Jeepers Creepers for what it is. was in there. 30 Days of Night, which you mentioned. The Host, that was a hard one. It was on my list for a long time.
Yep.
Ju-on the Grudge was on there for a long time.
Yep.
I must be a sucker for these Hannibal Lecter movies. Red Dragon I revisited and kind of dismissed. It's a little bit closer in style to Silence of the Lambs than Hannibal. A movie called Identity.
Really?
Yeah. It soured a little bit on the second viewing. First time I saw it, I just loved it.
It's another Switchblade romance for me, where I was liking it until they kicked it in with the twist, and then I stopped.
And you didn't like the twist.
It was too big a pill for me.
Okay,
it was too big
Fair
a pill
enough.
for me.
Very visual movie. Didn't work for me as much the second time. The Cell, but very creative idea of getting into the head of a serial killer. The Box I like, a very cerebral film. Did not do well. I don't know if it's because of the cast, Cameron Diaz in particular being in it, but there's some creepy moments and stuff in there. It's a little bit too PG-13, I think. I put Saw in there because of its influence, not because I like it. And it just, I eventually took it off the list just because I just don't like it enough to put it on there. Cloverfield, again, it's an influential found footage film. I don't know if it's horror or science fiction. It's it's all right. The Machinist, a little bit of a Christian Bale vanity project in there, but it's a solid film as well. I like Sin City. Some people don't like Sin City. The question is it a horror movie or is it? Some of the stories are. The Elijah Wood character is pretty horrible. More film noir, more graphic novel.
It feels like Sin City is like last decade's American Pie franchise, and that it was really fun when it happened. But looking back on it, it's aged like milk.
Mm-hmm. Mickey Rourke kind of brought back his career a little bit with that one. Land of the Dead, I did have there as I wanted to have a Romero movie on there, but it didn't happen. With the 90s, I got the Dark Half in.
I have lots of honorable mentions, just a few that I'll shout out some that I have here that you guys haven't mentioned yet. Lee and I reviewed this movie Blackwater about these people who get treed up by a crocodile. It's a very well done man against nature movie. A strange sort of comedy called Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon, where a documentary crew follows this guy around. It was it's late. It should have been coming out in the 90s, and I think that's probably what hurt it. But it's actually smarter than people give it credit for. Again, you have to accept that this movie exists in a world where every slasher movie you ever saw actually happened. And for a lot of people, that's just too much to take seriously, even a little bit.
I remember you talking about it.
And if that's the case, then it's not going to work for you. But for me, again, neither of you guys said that one out loud, so I thought I would mention it. Dead Snow, great zombie Nazis film. If that's your Canadian zombie movie called Fido, where Billy Connolly plays a zombie that is trained to be a housekeeper.
I've forgotten about that movie.
We're going to talk about the Mothman Prophecies, but I think that is an interesting movie. Wolf Creek, I just talked about in my torture point one.
Number 32 for me.
It's a really effective horror movie. It is not enjoyable, maybe, but it is horrifying. If you want to be horrified, I think I may end up just posting up on the site maybe my top 100 because there's lots, but it was a rich decade for horror movies.
Overwhelming trying to do this list, actually.
Lee and I, the deeper into the list, the more you and I seem to be on the same page. But it was great because we got a completely different list almost.
Which you knew. That's why I'm here.
That's why you're here, brother. Let's stop it.
Once more and for the record, the top 30 horror movies according to Mr. Jason Dubray. Number 30, Shadow of the Vampire. Number 29, The Mist. Number 28, Ginger Snaps. 27, Battle Royale. 26, High Tension. 25, Zombieland. 24, District 9. 23, 1408. 22, Grindhouse. 21, Secret Window. 20, 28 Days Later. 19, 28 Weeks Later. 18, Hannibal. 17, Donnie Darko. 16, Zodiac. 15, The Orphanage. 14, Paranormal Activity. 13, Shaun of the Dead. 12, The Others. 11, Sweeney Todd. 10, Hard Candy. 9, The Gift. 8, Pontypool. 7, Session 9. 6, A Tale of Two Sisters. 5, Antichrist. 4, Frailty. 3, Requiem for a Dream. 2, Let the Right One In. And number 1 for Jason was Pan's Labyrinth. Mr. Lee Beckmann's list was as follows. Number 30 was a tie between Frankenfish and Black Sheep. 29, The Human Centipede. 28, Antichrist. 27, Jesus Camp. 26, Freddy vs. Jason. 25, The Ruins. 24, Hatchet. 23, High Tension tied with Inside. 22, Jeepers Creepers. 21, Ju-On. 20, a tie between Lake Mungo and Wreck. 19, Dog Soldiers. 18, Wrong Turn. 17, Pontypool. 16, Shutter. 15, The Children. 14, Splinter. 13, Dawn of the Dead remake. 12, Open Water. 11, The Host. 10, Ginger Snaps. 9, The Hills Have Eyes remake. 8, Drag Me to Hell. 7, Trick or Treat. 6, The Ring. 5, Session 9. 4, Let the Right One In. 3, The Descent. 2, 28 Days Later. And number 1 for Mr. Lee Beckmann was The Mist. And now for your host and Random Canadians Top 30, the correct Top 30 horror movies from the 2000s. Number 30, 30 Days of Night. 29, Dagon. 28, Slither. 27 is a tie between Shaun of the Dead and Zombieland. 26 is The Ruins. 25 is The Ring. 24, Eden Lake. 23, The Others. 22, Lake Mungo. 21, The Last Winter. 20, The Burrowers. 19, Shutter. 18, The Children. 17, Triangle. 16, May. 15, Pontypool. 14, a tie between Drag Me to Hell and The Gift. 13, A Tale of Two Sisters. 12, Open Water. 11, Dawn of the Dead remake. 10, Ginger Snaps. 9, Paranormal Activity. 8, Trick or Treat. 7, Wreck. 6, a tie between The Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth. 5, Let the Right One In. 4, Session 9. 3, The Descent. 2, 28 Days Later. And number 1, The Mist. I know it was a long chat, and that might have been hard to keep track of on the way, so I present for you this brief summation. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of Rank and Review. It was a lot of work and a lot of love. Thank you so much for listening to this very special edition of Rank and Review. It was a lot of work to cut this together, and I want to give a little shout out to the kids. I know you must have heard some of that thumping and banging up there, but believe they'd been very patient. We tried to ply them with food, we tried to ply them with games, we tried to ply them with cartoons, but sooner or later they're going to burst the gate and demand our attention. So big thanks to Owen, Tristan, and Maya for putting up with the neglect while we recorded this podcast. That was a pretty epic discussion that we had on the 2000s, and I would love to hear some feedback. So if you have feedback for me, you can write the host and Random Canadian Larry Parsons at ranknreview@gmail.com. That's ranknreview@gmail.com. Please check out the website at ranknreview.ca, and please tell a friend about the show. If you're looking for another good horror-themed podcast to listen to, I highly recommend the Terror Table podcast. If you haven't heard it, please check out the Terror Table. And please do continue to listen to Rank and Review. I consider you a friend by your listening. Until next we speak, have a good one, kids.